Charles Oliveira out, Alexander Volkanovski in. But that's not all. Paulo Costa out, Kamaru Usman in. UFC 294 has been flipped upside down on its head. Islam Makhachev will now be defending his lightweight title in a rematch, but not against Charles Oliveira. No, it is a rematch against Alexander Volkanovski, the featherweight champion of the world and the current ranked number one pound for pound fighter in the world. And then the co-main event, Kamaru Usman making his middleweight debut in the UFC to take on Khamzat Chimaev, the Wolf, the undefeated phenom. But we haven't seen him fight in over a year by the time he gets into the cage on October 21st. This is absolutely wild. We got to start with the main event, work our way to the co-main here. Let's break these down individually here. So Charles Oliveira goes down in round 5 of his final sparring session before leaving to travel to Abu Dhabi for UFC 294. Cuts his head open very badly right above the eyebrow, had to get stitches, could not make the turnaround to fight safely in Abu Dhabi. Said he didn't want to be 80% to fight Islam Makhachev. He needed to be 100%, and that's obviously understandable. So what does the UFC do? They scramble, and they get to do another rematch, arguably a bigger rematch, and on 11 days' notice at the time, the featherweight champion of the world, Alexander Volkanovski, answers the call and will be in Abu Dhabi to face Islam Makhachev in a rematch that was so good, so high level and technical when they last went at it in February of this year. And since then, he has went on to defend his featherweight title against Yair Rodriguez, Alexander Volkanovski, that is. And this is going to be Islam Makhachev's first appearance in the octagon since facing Alexander earlier this year. So it's an immediate rematch for the current lightweight champion, but not an immediate rematch in a sense for Volkanovski. It's going to be absolutely wild to see how this fight week will go down for Volk and just how the fight build will be throughout the week next week. And, you know, it's crazy that I was very much looking forward to Oliveira Makhachev too, for starters. But there's something about this being ran back that just feels much, much bigger, much, much more important. And there's an opportunity here for Alexander Volkanovski to cement himself as a top 3 fighter of all time. I'm just going to say it. If he turns around on 11 days' notice, comes in, wins a title up a weight class against someone that he has lost to prior, and is a double champion under those circumstances, I think he puts himself top 3, guys. I'm not even joking. Maybe it's recency bias here, but give me top 5 at least, right? Tell me you at least think top 5. If he comes in here and does this, this would be absolutely unprecedented. And there's no kind of like slide here, if you will, to Islam Makhachev, because he decided to accept this fight as well. He decided to save this card. He could have said no and waited for Oliveira maybe like at the end of the year in December or something like that, or turning around quick next year, but he will not. He is going to fight Volkanovski, and you must tip your hat to both men in this situation. And one more thing to touch on for this fight is that Volkanovski has said that he plans to still turn around and fight Ilia Topuria in January. I believe it's January 20th to be exact, something like that. UFC 297, rumored to be Toronto, Canada, and defend his featherweight title, assuming he gets out of here with no injuries, and that's win or lose to Islam Makhachev at UFC 294. So Volkanovski, man, continues to just really up the ante of what an active champion is and an ambassador of the sport. I mean, there's not been many fighters in this game that it can do and say what Volkanovski has done. So it's absolutely incredible stuff there in the UFC 294 main event. And the co-main event, well, wasn't there a little feeling in all of our stomachs that thought Khamzat and Paulo Costa would just never happen? In September 2020, Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa fought 1 week apart. Paulo Costa was challenging Israel Adesanya at the time when both fighters were undefeated in professional MMA. and lost in that bout. And a week prior to that, on September 19th, Khamzat Chimaev was taking on Gerald Meerschaert and won in 17 seconds of the first round. What's the significance of September 2020 and these two fighters fighting 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, 1 week apart from one another? Since then, both fighters have had 5 canceled bouts in just over 3 years. Wow. Khamzat Chimaev, a guy that fought 3 times in a span of July 2020 to September 19th, 2020, by the way, has fought 3 total times since that September date in 2020. And for Paulo Costa, the man who has withdrawn from this bout due to, I believe it's a couple of surgeries on his arm, or it could even be more specifically his hand, but something's jacked up on one of his arms. That secret juice, man. You gotta be careful with that stuff, Paulo. He's fought 2 times since losing that title to Israel Adesanya, a loss to Marvin Vettori in another weird fight that would have almost been number 6 in a canceled order for Paulo, but they decided to fight at 205 pounds on like a day's notice, and it was actually a barn burner of a fight. If you haven't seen it, it's pretty great. But he loses to Marvin Vettori in October 23rd of 2021. Doesn't fight again until August 20th of 2022, and one of the weirdest, most just insanely awkward, just weird fights I've ever seen with Luke Rockhold. A blood and guts war, but at the same time, just doesn't make sense. I don't really know what to make of that fight, and hasn't fought since then as well. So it's just been a wild, wild ride for Paulo Costa here. Canceled fights with Whitaker, Cannonier, Rockhold. They eventually got to do that fight, obviously. Ikram Aliskerov, and now Khamzat Chimaev. And if you want to look at Khamzat, obviously this one is not his fault, but he had that fight fall through with Leon 3 different times at the end of 2020 and the beginning of 2021. They had the weird UFC 279 fight week last year with Nate Diaz where they scrambled like crazy. He was like 8 pounds overweight, comes in and fights Kevin Holland instead. That was another wild fight week. And then obviously here with Paulo Costa. But all of that drama, maybe confusion the way I was talking about it aside, the the former welterweight champion of the world, Kamaru Usman, stepping in to face Khamzat Chimaev up a weight class at 185 pounds on 10 days' notice, because this came 1 day after Volkanovski stepped in to face Islam in the main event. Crazy, man. Absolutely crazy. You don't see stuff like this. I feel like the last time we had a card like this was UFC 279 at the aforementioned events with Khamzat Chimaev. So there must just be something about him and Paulo Costa and some of these other guys being on the same card that just creates chaos. But beautiful chaos it is, because wow, what an interesting fight we are going to get to see between Usman and Chimaev. I couldn't tell you what's going to happen in that one, because, you know, for the first time, we're going to see someone that, at least on paper, can match Khamzat Chimaev or be a pretty close match to Khamzat Chimaev's wrestling and grappling capabilities. And if Kamaru can stop that, it's going to be very, very intriguing. You saw the only other real time that Khamzat has been tested was against Gilbert Burns, but I'll say that that wasn't really Gilbert Burns canceling out Khamzat's game. I believe that was Khamzat not going with the game plan and wanting to have an absolute banger of a fight, which he did have with Gilbert Burns, and a winning effort, of course. So I'm very curious how both of these fights are going to get, and we're literally only, at the time you guys are hearing this and seeing this, 8 days away. So it's going to be an incredible, incredible day at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi. It may have been ugly to get there, but honestly, you know, you hate to see people go out with injuries. I hope Charles Oliveira can recover. I hope Paulo Costa can recover. I believe he even has to get another surgery done, if I'm not mistaken. His Twitter account's a little crazy, but I take his word. So I hope those guys can recover well. But in the meantime, I think we did get 2 fights that are more intriguing. I really do. I think they're more intriguing. I think there's a lot more X's and O's to them. The only kind of counter part to that, or the argument you could say, is that they are on short notice, right? We're not getting Volkanovski full strength coming out of a training camp. We're getting, in his words, a Volkanovski coming off the couch. And for Kamaru Usman, obviously been training. It looked like there was a time where he might even fight Stephen Wonderboy Thompson before the end of the year. Not only is he stepping in on short notice, he's going up to a weight class we've not seen him compete in the UFC, and he's doing it against Khamzat Chimaev, who we have seen compete there, and he looks like an absolute behemoth of a man in any weight class that he fights. Get ready, fasten your seatbelts, because it's going to be an insane fight week, insane media days and press conferences, and an even nuttier card, assuming all goes well and that we can get there after the week and after weigh-ins. Give me all your thoughts on what you think of UFC 294 and the switch up. Do you like Islam Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2 better than Makhachev versus Oliveira 2? And do you like Kamaru Usman taking on Khamzat Chimaev better than Paulo Costa versus Chimaev? So let me know all of your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new so you never miss a clip, never miss any of the big time hitters. I'm trying to still navigate the waters of the solo layout. We're going to make this look pretty, but just bear with me a few more weeks. Hopefully I'll have everything settled, a new logo, new colors, all that fun stuff. We'll get banners and everything rocking again as well. But in the meantime, feel free to continue checking out some of the content here on the channel. I'm trying to get shorts out as quick as possible, since the recordings are obviously a little bit different now, being that there's like, I don't know, there's still a busy schedule for me, but there's not a schedule to coincide with Noah. So it's kind of just weird. I'm going to try and get this all down into a groove over the next coming weeks, and maybe get a video like this out sooner than what it was this week. Instead, the shorts came out sooner, and then you're getting a little bit more of my in-depth thoughts, on Friday. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this, and we will see you in the next big fight announcement. And I guess if you're here on the channel, you're going to also see a preview eventually uploaded for UFC Vegas 81. See you there.